committee members on the Health Committee. I miss being in here. This is the only bill I've had in here this year, and that's really different for me. But I am going to, out of respect for all of our time and energy and the fact that your fabulous chair actually pulled this out of rules for me, I'm going to keep this super short, and I mean that. Everyone knows all about the Developmental Disabilities Administration, some of the issues that folks who use their services have been struggling with over the past many years, actually. It's not just the last two. And this bill does a little bit to make their lives a tiny bit easier. And that's because they always look to what's called the Self-Directed Services Manual, which is over 100 pages and which changes all the time, to determine like what is legal, what they need to do to follow the rules to get funding for the services that they utilize. The problem with that is that this manual, changes to it do not go through the regulatory process. So if these are regulation changes, they have to have public comment. People have time to digest them, to understand them, and amend them as necessary. Unfortunately, with the self-directed manual, what is really the lifeblood of this program, none of those things apply. So this bill simply says that when changes are proposed to this manual that has all the instructions in it, that the secretary, deputy secretary has to give notice to the people who utilize it and has to allow them to have public comment and cannot make changes to this manual until that public comment period is over. It's as simple as that. The reason behind it, I think, is obvious to this committee because you have heard problems associated with this program for so long. But just a good example is there have been several meetings over the past year where the department has held webinars to try to teach folks what is in the new changes to the manual, only to have people find out that the policy changes in the manual had gone into effect even before they had that meeting. So they were out of compliance already. Or the issues that were being addressed in the policies in the manual required training, but the training wasn't available for weeks or months, even though the actual policies had already been changed, and so they were out of compliance. So this just improves communication and makes the lives of people who are already struggling within the system a little bit more clear and a little bit easier. So with that, I ask for a favorable report on House Bill 1593.
All right, thank you for your testimony. I'm going to open it up for questions from the members, starting with Delegate Rosenberg, followed by Delegate Kaufman.
If I heard you correctly, this is going to be a system like the AELR process, but not the AELR process. Why did you do it that way instead of making it subject to the AELR process? I'm biased, but.
Sure. And what a great process that is, sir, with terrific leadership.
Just follow the statute.
Because yes, and I think because these are policy changes and not regulatory changes, so they do fall into a different bucket than the regulatory changes. But then, to be completely honest, the bill was drafted in the Senate first, and I was asked to cross-file, and so this is how it was initially written. I certainly would not be at all opposed to that, but I think as written, this is sort of where we are right now.
Thank you.
Delegate Kaufman.
Yes, I'm just wondering, wonderful to see you, Madam Vice Chair. I'm just wondering if you're amenable to the amendments proposed by the DD Coalition in their letter?
Are you referring to the letter saying that these policy changes and the notification that they will be changed needs to be available in plain language that all can access?
I believe so, yes.
I absolutely think that's an amazing and wonderful positive addition to this bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, sir.
Vice Chair Cullison.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And in addition to that amazing possibility, there is information from people on the go that are looking for this to extend beyond the self-directed services. So do you know, for the other kinds of services, is there this kind of document that it would apply to, or is it sort of unique to this particular program?
I don't want to guess at that. I have not heard of a document like this one that changes as often without the opportunity for public comment, but I am not familiar with other very specific waiver programs and programs through how they make those changes. I know that this one is the biggest and the most fluid that I think is out there.
Madam Chair, may I ask? Okay, so this isn't necessarily a follow-up, just another
Sure.
question. Just, I will confess I haven't read the bill really thoroughly. Is there a contingency that, or not a contingency, but a requirement that the current practice will stay in place until the change goes through this process of change?
Yeah, so there is a requirement that unless they actually start, unless they actually make this known to people and allow public comment, they cannot make any more changes
Okay.
without,
And everybody would operate under the current situation until that is done?
yes,
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
yes.
Thank you. Vice Chair Guyton, we do have a proposed amendment from the Department of Health that strikes the language around the public comment period and replaces it with the secretary shall adopt regulations for the community pathways waiver, including regulations pertaining to the delivery of self-directed services. And I think that might sort of create the AELR process. Have you seen this, or have you spoken with the
I have
Department of
not
Health?
seen this, and I don't think it's in my little handy manual that my staff put together.
All right, so perhaps we can have a conversation with the Department of
Sure.
Health and
Sure.
sort of get to the crux of that. Delegate Gazzoni.
Thank you. So, yeah, sorry, that question threw me off. I just wanted to ask actually about the sort of start date, which is in October, and would there be any way that that could get moved up to maybe July 1 or even make this an emergency bill?
It would certainly be fine with me if this committee decides to do that.
Delegate Riley.
Chair. So thank you for the bill. So I had a question. So that you said that the manual was fairly lengthy, so a lot of pages. So even though they have this 90-day period and they have the open comment time frame, when the changes are made, how are those changes just made in the manual and then they have access to the manual, or will those changes be like somewhere where they can just go see the changes instead of reading the whole
Right.
manual?
Well, to date, the problem is that folks usually do have to read the manual, right? Which isn't easy for everyone, especially as, Delegate Kaufman pointed out, if it's not in plain language and easy to understand, and these are families that are already stressed in a lot of different ways. So currently they do, although they do generally say, okay, there are some changes in the manual. We're going to have a meeting, a webinar usually, to explain those to you. And they will have the meetings. People who can attend will attend. And that is when usually they'll say, okay, this is what we're doing. They don't have any input in that. And like I said, sometimes they'll have the meeting after the rules have already been changed and no one's in compliance and they don't have time actually to become compliant with those regulations, with those policy changes.
Okay, so they're going to be notified once the changes are done in the same way? Is that, do they
So there's
get an
nothing- the bill
email or
doesn't-
snail mail?
Yeah, so the bill doesn't really speak to how the department will then roll out the new changes. The bill just speaks to the fact that people will be notified and have a public comment period, have a chance to look at all of the changes and to help draft them and express their concerns if necessary, which is not something they've had the chance to do in the past.
Thank you very much, appreciate it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Seeing no further questions, this does conclude the bill hearing on House Bill 1593. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Chair.